All right, we ready, Amber?
We're recording.
All right, cool. Um, so I'm Brad, and this is Claude. Thank you guys so much for jumping in. Claude, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation.
Thank you, Fred.
It is just a kind of a baseline of how we're going to roll today, we think, is Rachel and I are going to start really dancing with Claude on some questions around empathy in the workplace, and honestly, empathy more than ever right now. And let her engage her to tell her story. And then if you want, you can post questions in the chat, and hopefully later on we'll get to some of those and ask Claude, and she may or may not want to answer them. We'll see. So
We'll see.
But it is fantastic to have you. I lead HeartConnexion seminars. Is organization. What we do is we help people live wholehearted, authentic lives through immersive experiences, etc. And you happen to be a chief heart officer, and so that's a great connection. And so just very, very ecstatic to have you. And want to introduce Rachel, Rachel Keck, and Rachel is one of the biggest fans of yours that I've ever met. And so she's going to share with folks and introduce you.
Thank you. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Claude. It's so good to see you. Just your name has been spoken so many times in our house since dinner last night. It's telling my kids about, like, what would you ask somebody that's been such an inspiration? Like, what do you even say? But I will say I love you for two reasons. Actually, I love you for many reasons, but there's two that are top of the list. One is, and I don't know how everybody else on this call feels, but when you see a human being in a leadership role that keeps stepping into more of who they really are, it's inspiring. I mean, it's vulnerable. It is so human. It's encouraging. And that's really what I see in you, Claude, is that you keep becoming more of who you really are, which is permission for me to do the same. And the second thing that I love is just personally and professionally, my friend Gail pointed me in your direction in a time when I wasn't sure that I belonged in the business world. I wasn't sure where I fit. And the way that you rolled out your role of Chief Heart Officer at VaynerMedia, it was so deeply resonating for me. And again, with permission to be my full self, and that my full self did belong anywhere, including the business world. And so I think on behalf of everybody on this call, thank you for your time and energy over the next hour.
That means a lot to me. Thank you very, very much. I'm super humble. Thanks.
So would you start just to kind of get everybody up to speed? Some of us are longtime followers, and some of us may be new to your story. Could you just give us a snapshot of like how you got to where you are in this role of Chief Heart Officer?
Sure. I'll give the condensed version, which is I somehow landed in the world of advertising and marketing in around 1998. I was living in San Francisco, and I had no business being in this world of media or communications. I was studying to be a psychotherapist, and someone offered me a role at a internet.com company, and it paid more than I was making at this grocery store, and I took it. And away I went into this world of digital media, digital marketing, which was incredibly good to me. I was a very hard worker, and it paid off in many ways. And I was able to move to London with the some roles, and just touch so many different brands that we now touch at Walgreens or CVS and so forth. So, but my passion has always been people. My curiosity is always around human behavior. It started with my own human behavior and figuring out why I had certain habits and did certain things, and why I always seemed to be a late bloomer. And I ended up meeting Gary Vaynerchuk when I was living in London. I was running strategy at a large advertising agency. And we met on the phone in a brief second, and it was 3 minutes, and it was just, chemistry, which many people have with him. And I came to New York to meet him a month later. We had coffee. It was a 30-minute meeting. And I left that thinking, oh my gosh, I need to be around this person. And 6 months later, he brought me to New York, and I started at VaynerMedia in May of 2014. So I'm coming up on 6 years right now. And I started in a very similar role that I had always been in, which was a very senior role, client-facing role, and helping clients achieve their campaign metrics, and selling product and inspiring consumers and whatnot. And this loud voice that I had pushed down for so long was just started to boom up again. And on right around my year anniversary, and I told Gary, I love this place. I love you. This is fantastic, but I'm no longer interested in advertising. And that was hard to do to, one of the world's greatest marketers. And he said in his wonderful way, what do you want to do? What are you interested in? And I said, I only care about people. I only care about the heartbeat of this place. And he said, cool, I need you to stay in the role 18 months longer. I said, I only have 6 months. 6 months came, and I actually resigned, because I was very, very, very sure of my decision that I was done in the advertising world, but I knew I wanted to be part of the building of something great and continue to wrap my arms around people and teams and individuals and help them achieve their wildest dreams by, helping them look at themselves. So 4 months later, we sat down, we had breakfast, and he said, that's it, you're coming back, you're going to be Chief Heart Officer. And I knew what that meant, because it's always been me. The title's fantastic, and it's really, the greatest title in showbiz, but it really is, it embodies who I am. And so it makes sense. And I asked him 2 things. One, what are we doing? And he said, we're creating the greatest human organization that ever was. And I said, cool, sign me up. How do we know if I'm successful? I've never done HR. He said, you'll hire a HR team around you, which I have. Your job is to touch every single individual and infuse the agency with empathy. And I said, okay, I got that. I can do it. And away we went.
Amazing story. Rachel, I believe you were the first one that mentioned that title to me. I would listen to one of Gary's podcasts, and it's like, Chief Heart Officer. That's it's amazing. It's an amazing title. So, so just great stuff. How would you explain empathy? Like, what does it take? Like, what gets in the way of that?
So I believe empathy is absolutely a superpower that all of us have, and it's up to us to switch on or off. I believe empathy requires being non-judgmental and holding space for another and understanding what that person could be going through. Doesn't mean you've gone through it, but it's an understanding and a holding of what their reality could possibly be like. It's not sympathy. It's not, I'm sorry. It's, wow, I can only imagine that's really difficult during this time, which is very, very different. What gets us in the way, I think, is our own fear. I mean, what gets us in a way is our own vulnerability and that we don't show ourselves, and show ourselves to be fallible, human, as people that have bumped our heads many times or skinned our knees many times. I think that we human race have been afraid in many ways to get real, because what would that say about us? Well, what that would say about you is you're human. You're just like me. You're just like you, and you and you. So I believe fear gets us in the way.
Do you, I mean, you what I love about the story is that it is so you. It's like Gary gave you a chance to step into work that just is who you are. But I wonder if empathy has it always been a big part? Is it something that you had to develop?
Yeah.
When did this awareness kind of come about that empathy was the way home?
At a very young age, I knew I didn't know the word intuition, but I knew I picked up on people. Really young age, like I'm talking 4 or 5. I can remember really feeling other people. And I didn't know what that was called. Of course, I just knew I was kind of ultra sensitive and wanting to really wrap my arms around people. And I've grown up in a very, in a household that is very generous, and they have a generous spirit. My Nana, who I speak about quite a bit, who died 3 years ago at 101, was the most empathetic person I ever knew. We would be in Trader Joe's, or we would be at the bank or wherever, and she'd be getting her money back from Trader Joe, the cashier, and she'd say, "Would you do me a favor?" And the person would say, "Yeah." She'd say, "Would you have a nice day?" I mean, it's just, I can't put words around what that feeling is like. But we know that what she was doing is she was brightening up someone else's day for no other reason than she had that ability. So she really emotionally raised me in many, many ways. And it's something I picked up on. I also, because I was very sensitive, my parents used to say all the time, you think too much with your heart, try thinking with your head. And as I've said a lot, I really thought I had a missing chip. I mean, I really thought I had a missing chip here, which wasn't great. It wasn't great to feel like I had a deficit there. And what I've learned, and what I learned through really taking stock of who I am and looking at my behaviors, and being in relationship with people who had similar behaviors to me, is I learned, like, there isn't anything wrong with me. And what I need to do is actually lean in more there, not apologize for it, and allow other people to embody that as well, because there has been such a stigma, I believe, around soft skills. I don't like the term. I'd rather throw it out. I'm vocal about that. I think they're life skills. I think they're absolutely necessary life skills. So it's really been interesting. I mean, I've had to really learn throughout the years, in my younger years, to think critically and to be able to really see all sides of a diamond, and not just see the right side of the brain, to really understand, like, there's context to everything. So anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying it's been with me throughout, and I have been able to evolve it and evolve myself while being, a sensitive person.
What do you feel are some of the greatest opportunities and challenges in this environment for scaling empathy? And I'll include with that, I know you're very familiar with Brene Brown's work.
Yeah.
I, and also the importance of scaling empathy and vulnerability in leadership and in a culture of any kind.
I think now more than ever is the time for us to cast those fears and those shackles and whatever handcuffs we have away, because this is a moment in time where we are all feeling a very similar range of emotions, and there's no real denying that. Every single one of us is now isolated. We are only able to touch and hug the person we are with, who we are in this isolation with. Our ability to vibe off of others is gone, unless we're doing it here, which is amazing, because we are all rallying to do it here. So that's the first thing I want to say, is, like, this is the time, like, step up, step in. We're all the same. We are all the same, which is something I love. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is really understanding, like, coming to grips with, I don't know what the word is, the phrase is, but, like, being that we're all the same, we're all vulnerable. We're all going through a human experience, whether or not we like it or not. We're all having some kind of fear. We're all going through some kind of grieving process. We're all figuring it out. We're all looking at our bank statement. We're all excited about what happens tomorrow. Let's make it a different Groundhog's Day than today. So the way I really answer that is that to get real with the fact that we are experiencing something as a society. And, let's just hold hands in that. Let's hold hands in that rather than push those away because you're having a harder day than I'm having, or, you lost your job and I'm really sorry, but I'm doing everything I can to keep my, all that stuff. So now's the time.
That leads to a question I have. If you were to step out of VaynerMedia right now and into a new company, what would be the first few things that you would do? I think that actually there's wonderful questions popping up in chat, and a lot of it is like, practically speaking, how do you even begin? Individually, it feels easier. One-on-one, it feels easier to do this sort of work. But when you step into the energy of the collective, you could get lost really quick. So just practically, if you stepped into a new company tomorrow, what would be the first few things that you would do?
So I'm a real quirky person, and I probably would be very vulnerable and letting people know that I'm a pretty quirky person and, just a dork, just like the rest of us. I would do a lot of listening. But that's what I would do. I would ask a lot of questions. I would do a lot of listening to figure out what the vibe was, where people's excitement was, where their trepidation lies, what is the vibe of the senior management, senior leadership. But I wouldn't change my stripes. I mean, there's no way I would change my stripes. And so I would find those that were similar, and we'd come together. And so the practicality is this: there will always be people like you in a job, in that next job, in that community, on that soccer team. There will always be, because while we're very, very unique, again, we're very, very similar. And like finds like. And you create little communities that they have groundswell, and you start to build a culture. You start to build excitement in the little pocket that you're forming. And it's a pocket of good. And people want to be around good. Yeah, there'll be the cynics. There'll be the negative Nancys. That's just part of it, right? For whatever reason. And we're not here to change people. But what you want to do is step up and step into your own superpower. Just be yourself. And people will gravitate towards you, and you will find those people and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Why don't we do a blank, blank, blank on Wednesday night? Why don't we karaoke, whatever. So I wouldn't change a thing. I would just continue to be me, and I would encourage everyone to be themselves and take a risk and be vulnerable. And that doesn't mean being scared and saying, and being shy. It means taking a risk, because you know what? You might just bloom. And when you bloom, others will bloom.
What I so love about what you're saying is that, and my tendency is to fight against and force change instead of fully be who I am and let that attract other people that are wanting to do the same, and letting that be kind of the flood instead of like this forceful, violent change of something. And so that's really, I love that. Brad, did you have a question, or am I have so many thoughts right now.
Go for it.
Especially
No,
because
go for
you
it.
mentioned stripes. You mentioned stripes, and I just started Untamed yesterday. And I'm like, oh my God, no, let's talk about being cheetahs.
Let's go there. Let's go.
It's absolutely amazing. That book is life-changing.
Oh my gosh.
Life affirming.
Yeah, so something that I've been really diving into for myself over the last, I don't know how long, but well, probably since I was 2, but I mean, really deeply in the last little bit, and this came from The Big Leap by Gay Hendrickson. I don't know if you know of that book,
Mhm.
but he talked about the hidden barriers, and one of my top hidden barriers is the fear about shining. And so when you talk about going into a place and not changing your stripes and being who you are and letting that bring people who they are, like attract people being who they are, that's my barrier, like that fear about shining, that shrinking and almost caging myself, like it's the cheetah caging her own self.
Yeah.
Um, and so my struggle is really being shiny, being excited. I mean, yesterday I was so excited about being with you this morning, and then I was beating myself up for being giddy about being excited. And Michael Hahn, who's on the call, is like, you can be giddy, permission to be giddy and excited. So just that, like, just really letting the shine come out and being fully who I am is where I am. And I just wonder for you, what so Brad talks a lot about clarity, authenticity, vulnerability, and empathy as kind of these core pieces. Where do you struggle? What are you stepping into?
Yeah. I mean, I have my own limiting beliefs. Believe you me. They are, I think about the book Where the Wild Things Are quite a bit. And
Mm-hmm.
it's always been a favorite book of mine. And I can't wait until my daughter's old enough where I can read it to her. Those wild things, that get into your mind, and it's up to us, just like as Max in the Wild Things, just said, be still. And he tamed the wild things with a magic trick. So I bring that up because it's something I think about quite a bit. My limiting beliefs are more around imposter syndrome. Like, why me? Why would anyone? Probably like, why would anyone want to hear what I have to say? Like, we're all the same. I mean, I can say it. You can say it. You can say it. You can say it. So it's it probably is around shining. I've never looked at it that way. But it's easy for me to get small so that others can shine. And it's a real messed up way of being altruistic because it just backfires. So it's something I really have to push myself on. It's not easy for
Mm-hmm.
me to take up space sometimes. And then I realize that there's obviously my purpose is to be of service, is to be of joyful service. And so if that's my purpose, I need to step out of my own SHIT in order to be that.
I'm particularly curious, just as somebody that's really being aware of outgrowing this fear about shining. You work with you're second to a super big personality, a lot of energy, and it's probably no accident that you've landed here. If you share a similar trait of like easily getting small, what is that relationship like? And particularly, I'm wondering, not only for you personally and you being the big, fullness of who you are, like being as big as you are, but also this whole idea of people and profit. And so I'm curious, for like in your role, do you have the freedom to completely focus on people, or do you have bottom line responsibilities? Does that make sense?
So yeah, no, it's a great question. So I have total freedom and autonomy to focus on people, and recognizing that the people I focus on are affecting the bottom and top line. So that's the lens I use, which is, yes, of course, wanting to facilitate growth and change within a human being and with teams, and realizing that I work for a logo. I work for VaynerMedia, and we have a few purposes there. And one is to help our consumers touch our consumers' lives. help our clients sell more X, Y, and Z. So within the, I work within a, I don't know, a structure of some sort, but I don't think of it like that. I'm just very well aware that we all are headed towards somewhere, not only just in our lives, but with VaynerMedia. Again, we want to make this the greatest human organization of all time. So my role is to really, really facilitate that and to co-cultivate that with others, and to make sure that, especially in a time like right now, our focus is completely people. That hasn't changed, but our focus really needs to be around, staying afloat and continuing to stay afloat with rigor, and with and with purpose, and with passion, I would say.
What are some simple ways, Claude, that you continue to facilitate a culture that that empowers cheetahs, so to speak, and that also I have experienced an insidious lie a lot in some of the seminars that we do with "you're too much."
Mm.
I'm too much. I just need to be nice and acquiesce. And what are some practical ways for yourself and in the culture that you help facilitate, that you, I know you talk about taking up space, but how have you helped foster that?
Yeah, I love that question. I don't think I've ever actually been asked that question as you just did, Brad. So thank you for that. Okay, so first and foremost, yes, it is encouraging people to look at what their roadblocks are, just as Rachel and I just did, and to get in the front seat of their life and get in the front seat of the bus and drive the bus and put all of those wild things in the back of the bus. And that is something I believe we're all doing, whether or not conscious or unconscious. I really, really do. But some of the things that I do with people, and I have a huge whiteboard at the office, and then virtually I'm doing it in a different way, but is to do values exercises with folks and to ask them questions such as, why do you think your team values you? Why are they like, I need Brad on my team. Don't take Brad. Brad's the guy. And so the reason I do that is because I want to hear people be big. And I say to them, hey, it's just us here. It's just us. So be big. I want you to blast away. So that's the first thing. And so I get to see what why they think they're so strong. And I double click into a lot of things they say. And then the second thing is then mapping that up with some of their values. And then I ask them questions such as, what inspired you as a kid? What were the things that brought you joy and all of that stuff? And let's get back to that. So I meander quite a bit with a lot of different tools in my toolkit to help someone, I think, really open up and get into the driver's seat and be the cheetah.
What I hear you saying is you want people to be true with you.
Well, let's face it. Why else are we here?
Right.
What am I doing? What am I doing?
Right. 100%. So let's jump to some questions that people have asked, if you're up for it, Claude. And Rachel, you and I can dance back and forth on this, if that works for you. From Mary Jepson: practically speaking, how does one infuse an organization with empathy? Infuse, good word.
Yeah. Okay, because I had to figure that out pretty quickly, right? First of all, you are you. So be you and be confident in being you. At least fake it, not until you make it, fake it until you achieve it. But no one needs to know that, right? Listening is crucial and key. Listening. And so when Gary said to me, your role is to touch every single employee, look, I'm a very literal person. I spend my days meeting with every single employee. While I spend my days in operations meetings and resources meetings and leadership meetings, I spend my time, even virtually, in one-on-ones and in group settings, just jam sessions, Why in group settings? Because we are wired to belong and we need to be in community, especially now more than ever. But I I listen, I hold space non-judgmentally, I listen. I see what it is that I can actually do, what levers I can pull to help connect them to others that can help them blast off and network within our structure. I offer them tools and tips and tricks and books, so it's really, you have to have a heart that wants to help. That's the thing. And that, I think, is very tangible and practical, because if you're in it for yourself, go do something different. If you are in it to be of service and a servant leader, then sign up. I'll take you. But you have to figure out how to not let things bog you down, because they will. There's some real serious things that are happening in the world, and that we're humans, and find a way to empty your bucket at the end of the day, which is something I work on quite a bit. Find a way to make sure that I'm not the sponge of empathy, if that makes sense. I can hold, but to squeeze it and embody it, that's not my job.
Could you talk more about that? I think that is that a recent skill that you feel like you honed and learned, or is it something that you've kind of always known?
Oh, I had to learn it. And I probably learned it in my late 20s, I would say. So it's quite a while ago. But otherwise, those of us that are extremely empathetic, I think it can become a little codependent, quite frankly. That we feel like we really can help someone, can change them. We're the people. I can do it. It's okay that, you emotionally abuse me, blah, 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 blah. And that took me a while to really not only face, but also then do the hard work of taking that armor or taking that stuff off of me, So I do a lot of energy work with myself, and I learned a lot of energetic techniques when I was in my 20s, living in San Francisco. Of course, that's the place to do it. To help protect my energy while not keeping people out, and that's super important because we are sponges.
Can I ask real quick, just because I know I've been in the position where it's like, you're the empathetic one and we need you to carry the empathy or the care for the people, or carry the culture, like it's all on your shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
So how have you seen, just, from all the meetings and listening that you do, folks that maybe are learning empathy, they weren't maybe born with it, how are you seeing what you're doing impact those people and how they then carry that forward?
Yeah. So the answer, and then I'll back into it a bit, is really finding people that are similar to me, similar to Gary, have a very similar DNA, have a heart to help, are just like they're the hand raisers, and appointing them culture champions. Really, the fact of the matter is the culture isn't mine to create, and it's not Gary's to create. It's everyone's responsibility. And that gives everyone a piece. And they can get their hands dirty, and they can go, and they want to start a running group. Great. They want to be that person that I send people to when they're having a hard day. Great. They want to, do wall sits at 3:00 for 3 minutes. Great. But finding people that I know can carry and have a desire to carry is really, really important, because I have to scale. My job was set up to scale Gary at first. Then I have to scale myself, but we have to scale the culture. And in scaling the culture, that is scaling empathy. That is scaling EQ. And it is something that is happening every second of every day. It's fluid. Culture, of course, is not something you can necessarily, it's not blue and it's not green, but gosh knows you can feel it. You can feel it. So scaling is incredibly important, and scaling the human touch. I'm not talking about scaling it with some kind of survey that you send out online. Those are great. That's not what I'm talking about.
I love that. I mean, it's such a good reminder, again, for me, that it's about getting empathetic, kind of really emotionally and socially intelligent people as your culture champions, instead of trying to develop up people that are not quite, that are still learning it. So that's helpful.
Yeah. I mean, I want everyone to catch this wave.
Yeah.
So whether or not you're raising your hand because you want to become empathetic, you want to learn it, or you're in it, or you just need the switch turned on. Like I used to, so after the first .com bust, right after 9/11, I was in San Francisco, had gotten laid off, of course, and started an outdoor adventure surf company with a friend of mine. And we taught surfing in San Francisco, very, very cold water. And one day I was interviewed by the local paper, about like, hey, there's a lot of locals that surf here, and here you are teaching beginners, and, do the locals get mad at you? And I just said to them, there's plenty of water to go around. It's an ocean. It's the Pacific Ocean. There's plenty of water. There's plenty of opportunity to get on this empathetic bandwagon and be of service. Serve yourself, serve your family, serve your community, serve your work culture, plenty. We will never have a shortage.
I am going to ask you the next question that Isaac Jonas put in here is, he says, as a person who is taking the journey of starting my own small business, which you just talked about your business, how can I practice being my own heart officer? How do you practice this?
Yeah, Jonas, thank you very much. It's a exercise that I have to remind myself to give to myself, to be patient with myself, to make sure I'm taking care of my mind, body, and soul, and my spirit, as well as my family. I mean, when you are a giver, you have to remember that you got to give here first, or else there's really not a whole lot to give, right? It's just like put the mask on yourself before you put it on your children, which is really weird, right? You're like, no, I got to put it on the children. And it would be difficult for me not to put it on my daughter, but I'll try, So I find things that fill my cup. And, they're usually around creativity. So whether or not it's cooking or music, being in the outdoors, just getting some vitamin C, vitamin D. These are just practical tips. I make sure that I'm listening to podcasts that feed me. I'm reading books by people that touch my soul. I'm taking in information that is healthy for me. It's very important for me to be around like-minded spirits, if you will. And so that might mean tuning into Brene Brown's podcast, or Russell Brand, or reading Untamed and savoring every single word, talking to you all. That's up to me to find, because only I know what it is that just soothes me, So that's my suggestion there.
I think, and if I remember correctly, in your whiteboard sessions, do you help people with, I don't know, I seem to remember in your whiteboard sessions really helping people come to that for themselves too, as a way of scaling well-being from an inside out place with your folks.
Yeah. Yeah. That's part of that whole journey that I was talking about in terms of, why does your team want you, your values, what turns you on, what lights you up, get into that.
Yeah.
We for some reason, just like we have forgotten to be human at work, I think we forget that we have desires and passions, and we all need to be injected with inspiration, all of us, because inspiration is what drives us. It's what creates magic. It's what creates the iPhone,
I'll ask the next question, Claude, from Katie. How have you handled toxic work situations that hurt you and your peers' engagement and collaboration? And what processes did you put in place today to prevent that at where you're at?
Yeah, great question. So again, we're a very high touch culture. Gary has an open door 24/7. I got an open door 24/7. We have very strong leaders in place as well. So people can go and talk to whomever about any kind of toxicity or bullying or micromanagement that's going on. Now, we have to encourage that. And how do you encourage it? You talk about it. You do it. You act as an example, lead as an example. When I'm meeting with people for those 15 minutes, the questions I'm asking are oftentimes, rosebud, thorn. What's going great? Bud, what are you looking forward to? Thorn, and obviously I'm interested in the thorn. What's a challenge for you? What's not going? What can I do to help? If there's one thing, wave your magic wand. What can I do here to help you be your best self? And in that, I'm collecting data constantly. And with that data, what am I doing? I look for patterns. Oh, that's the 7th time in 6 months that I've heard that, Jackie is a bully. Well, I'm going to go investigate that, because bullies just aren't going to work here. But why is Jackie a bully? What's going on with Jackie? Figuring out what's going on with her and her life, why she's bringing that into the workplace. Why is she so good? Those types of things. So really encouraging people to speak. And the way to do that is to create psychological safety, and is to create connection and trust, right? A place where people feel like they belong, they can show up, they will not get penalized if they speak up, those types of things. And VaynerMedia is a place where you will not get penalized if you speak up. We want this to be the greatest human organization of all times. And it's not just me, and it's not just Gary that can do that. Amber's clapping.
So good. Rosebud thorn. That is so excellent. And I think I remember going into my last position kind of talking about this whole idea of chief heart officer. And in their head, it was real soft. I mean, they thought of heart as soft. And when I said, well, I think that this person is unhappy being here, and it's time to address that. And nobody wanted to address it. And I'm like, no, this is the heart. This is heart stuff. And it's not all soft. It's hard to do.
I always say, like, it's not, chief heart officer isn't an ooey gooey sticky role. There's human beings are messy, myself included. And so how am I able to be in someone else's mess and really help guide them as much as I possibly can to get unmessy in a way, you know what I mean? And that means I have to use a lot of radical candor, and I have to really sometimes be the bad cop, and I have to let people go, and I have to, do things that, I don't wake up in the morning being like, yeah, I want to do that today, but it's part of my role, and it's part of who I am as a human being that wants to show up fully.
I mean, it's part of empathy, right? I mean, part of empathy is doing hard things.
Yeah. Yeah. Glennon Doyle, we can do hard things.
Right.
Because
I care about you.
Exactly. Because I care. And, the heart is our central operating system. We die without the heart. Human beings are the central operating system of a culture, of a company. We all have hearts. I mean, that's just the way I look at it. Like, this heart is pumping blood every single day, and some days it works harder than others. Some days it glides, but I have to take care of it too.
Okay, next up, we have Aaron, who's asking, in a service organization that is part of the current pandemic, where do you start with that empathetic approach while navigating extreme change with employees and clients? Yeah, that extreme change right now is throwing people off.
Phenomenal question, and you do it with transparent communication. No BS. This is what's happening. This is where we are. This is what we're trying to do. There will be some hard decisions that we have to make. We're going to look everywhere, up, down, side to side, before we have to make hard decisions. And we need you all to be on board with us. we want you to be, tripling down on your efforts. If you are in client service, tripling down with your clients who are just as scared because their products aren't selling right now, unless they're online. So really instilling those types of, that type of honesty, but also remit. It's also permission for people to really like go forward and be their best, whatever they are, creative director, strategist, because we need it. But remember, our consumers and our clients need it. And that's just as important. So, but without being incredibly authentic and being honest with what's up, we would lose this, lose the fight.
That makes me want to ask you, transparent communication, I think we're seeing because of the situation. Those that are okay, I can do transparent communication, are really excelling, and those that can't. And I mean, you kind of mentioned fear, which I think is probably what gets in the way of communicating transparently. What are you guys, as a leadership team, how are you guys taming your own fears? Or maybe you're not taming them, but being really aware and honest about them?
Well, first of all, we've got an incredible leader who's very honest about what's going on. We're in a lot of small leadership meetings talking about the truth of the situation and the unknown that we're all navigating in a fog right now. Clients are also navigating in a fog, and some clients aren't able to pay on time and those types of things. So, I do think that the way to, sure, Marianne Williamson, and I love this, the opposite of fear is love. Yes. So how do you enter into these situations with love? I believe it's really through honesty and through vulnerability and through, really checking yourself. And that's important because people right now are looking to leadership to help them navigate, because there is a lot of fear. There is unknown. Every 6 hours, something changes. We open up any, New York Times Online, CNN, whatever, we're all seeing the same things, right? There's no, you're in Kansas City, but you and I are reading the same types of news right now. So being real about that, because it would be so unfair to be anything other than real. It would be so unfair. It'd be a crime.
Can you touch on Claude? We've got 9 minutes left, so we'll plow through some of these. Can you touch on how empathy and difficult conversations intersect? Because I think it's a great question, because I feel like sometimes people believe they're opposite ends of the spectrum, and I don't believe that. I actually think it is empathetic. But can you speak to that?
Yeah. So let's talk about feedback. First and foremost, I recommend Radical Candor by Kim Scott. If anyone wants to check that out, it's a great book, and it gives you some tactical and practical guidelines around feedback. Feedback, tough conversations, observations, right? When you withhold that from someone and choose not to be empathetic or real, what are you doing? You're actually manipulating someone's growth and trajectory and the ability for people to know the truth. 100%. And you don't do that on purpose. You do that because you're afraid of hurting someone. You don't want them to have a bad day at your expense. But we have to get real with people and get honest. Find your own voice through that, and find your own empathetic way of doing that without pulling the wool over their eyes, though. By being real, like, hey, Johnny, I really need to tell you, like, I know you love being here, and I know you really work really, really hard, but people are really having a challenging time with your negativity, with the way you come across. I know you don't mean to come across as a cynic, but when you say certain things, like, or when your body language is, so you have to have the courage to walk into those conversations with grace and with generosity, recognizing that you are there to give a gift, but care very personally about what you're about to say. So it's not a throwaway. You care. It's coming from you. You are going to affect someone's life, and you want to affect it in the best way possible. If it's if it's hard feedback, you know. So you want to be clear, you want to be kind, you want to be specific, you want to be actionable, you know, those types of things.
How would you educate your leaders if they don't understand the importance of investing in developing culture?
Wow. That is such a great question, because it does need to come from the top. You know, Gary has blessed this culture multiple times. He has blessed this role as of being so close to him. And without that type of blessing, it would be a much more of an uphill battle for me, because people would probably think, oh, the heart, mushy gushy, all of that stuff. But in fact, you know, and we've already talked about this, the heart is needed in any situation, in any organization. And, you know, the thing about a chief heart officer, a thing about the teams that, you know, my team is, we are yes and. We are not on the defense. We are not no. You know, normally HR departments are seen as defensive and protecting the company and all of that jazz. And yeah, sure, we have compliance. Yes. But our job is really to help people get the best out of themselves, so we get the best out of them, you know, and that's by really working with them on growth and development and trajectory and goals, and making sure they're staffed on the right type of accounts. And if not, you know, if their performance is dipping, you know, making sure that we're giving them actionable things in a performance plan. I mean, so that was a roundabout way of saying, like, leadership in some way, shape, or form has to bless this. Now, if it doesn't bless this, you and the groundswell that you create, back in a much earlier question, you bring facts and data and quant and qual to your leadership and say, you know, we decided to do, I'm completely making this up. We've decided in the last 3 months, we do a bake sale every single Wednesday, and we give the money to X, Y, and Z. What we've seen, we sent a survey out, people feel good, they know what they're doing, they feel like they have a purpose, you know, we'd like to continue this, can we get some buy-in from you? Completely made that scenario up. But leadership is guided a lot of times on quant and qual, so you have to bring data, but you have to bring context with the data, otherwise it's just an Excel spreadsheet, which is not much. Doesn't have any flavor to it.
So many good questions, Brad. Can we just ask this really easy one? Maybe it's not easy. So Rue Winchester in Rogers, Arkansas wonders if you know your Enneagram number.
I really think it's a 7 and a 1, but I was just thinking this the other day. I need to do it again. I think it was 7 and a 1. I will do it again, and I'll send it to Brad this week.
Very interesting. Yes, Brad identifies as a 7.
I heard. I don't know if you know who Rob Bell is, but
yes.
I heard Rob Bell say that he was a 7 with a 7 wing.
And that's Brad, pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
I'll send it to you this weekend, but I'm pretty sure I'm a 7 and a 1. Maybe
Awesome.
there's a 4 in there too.
Great.
Yeah.
It has been fantastic to have you on, Claude. Thank you so much for your time today. I want to be respectful of your time, and I appreciate everyone that's been on this and been a part of this conversation. You are a forerunner in so many ways, and I just really appreciate your courage. I believe we all do appreciate your courage and just internal, this is the way home, so I'm just going to do this. And
it's the only way.
Yeah, it is, but it takes courage to be in that arena. And so
yeah. Well, thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you. It was great to see your child there, and Brad and Amber and everyone there. It's been an honor to be here, and I really, really appreciate just this connection that we created today.
Awesome.
Thanks so much love your way.
Have a great day.
Later. Bye. Thank
you. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everyone. We will have a YouTube link soon.
Thanks, everyone.